The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
Welcome to the Fort Erie Podcast. I'm Brent Jones, and this is episode 85 you're listening to. It's Tuesday, February the 27th, 2024. Huge thanks to start off to everyone who participated in Coldest Night of the Year on Saturday, whether you were a local sponsor, whether you walked, whether you donated. We raised a boatload of cash for the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie, so much gratitude for that. Let me say that up front. I also wanted to mention, though, that it is a leap year. I'm sure you guys have already figured that out by now, but we're in leap week, I'm calling it. This Thursday is February 29th, and every time somebody says February 29th, I think they're giving me the wrong date. I think they're just messing with me because you're just not used to hearing about February the 29th. But I've got some fun facts pulled up here about leap year. Some things I knew, some things I didn't. But if there was no such thing as a leap year, if we didn't do leap day, we would be off 24 days, almost a full calendar month every 100 years. Common sense, just I think most of us probably don't stop and think about it all that much. The very first leap year was introduced in 46 BC by Julius Caesar. So there you go. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? People born on leap days are sometimes called leaplings. It says leaplings. I've never heard that before. I just call leap day babies freaks of nature, but leaplings, I guess that works too. It says more than 4 million people around the world are leaplings. I guess by that math, that means what? Leap days every 4 years. So what? There's about 16 million people born every day, typically, and some of them have the misfortune of being born on February 29th. So people born February 29th, they tend to celebrate their birthdays either on February the 28th or March 1st. I have no idea how the parents choose that when the kids are young, probably just whatever day is more convenient for their schedule. I have no idea. There's actually an international club for leaplings, for these freaks of nature, the Honor Society of Leap Year Babies, and it has over 10,000 members worldwide. I find that pretty incredible. Also, the Summer Olympics happen every 4 years on leap years. I've never noticed that pattern before, but yeah, I guess that makes sense. Summer Olympics are always on the leap year, so great way to remember which years are the leap years, I suppose. Anyway, if you are a leap year baby, if you're a leapling, I'm sorry for calling you a freak of nature, but call it into the Byrd Box. I don't know if I've ever actually met or talked to somebody who's born on February 29th, so call it in, 289-599-2973 or 289-599-BYRD. I'd love to hear what your experience has been like being a leapling, being born on February the 29th. Anyway, for today's episode, I've got two guests joining me. First, today, I'm going to be speaking with Bill Marr. Many of you know Bill around town. He's the owner-operator of Garrison Automotive Service, of course, on Garrison Road. And then later in today's episode, I'm going to be speaking with Samantha Meli, local author, especially known for her children's titles. But to kick things off for today, let's have a look at what's coming up in this Thursday's brand new edition of the Fort Erie Observer.
Coming up in the Fort Erie Observer.
In partnership with the Fort Erie Observer, I'm able to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up in this Thursday's brand new edition. For starters, there's going to be an article on the Fort Erie Antique Mall, the new antique mall to hit Jarvis Street. The mall provides a combination of shopping opportunities. So, of course, antiques, as the name would suggest, but also vintage items, handcrafted items. So look out for a whole feature on the new Fort Erie Antique Mall. There's going to be an introduction to Cope's new office manager. There's also a feature on I'm not sure if this is a program or an app, but something called Spaces Shared. And this is a concept that allows the aging population to stay in their homes while giving university students affordable housing by sort of pairing those students with seniors. So it sounds like it's almost like not like ride sharing, but like home sharing type of thing. I'm going to be curious to learn more about this one myself, so I'll check out the Observer on Thursday. And the Carousel Players are presenting the Niagara Children's Festival, bringing international theater and performing arts to Niagara families. Carousel Players is going to launch its first annual Niagara Children's Festival on May 11th, 2024. Events running May 11th, 18th, 19th. Families locally can experience puppetry shows, interactive theater experiences, educational and creative workshops, musical performances, and everything is designed for audiences ages 2 and up. So if you have young kids at home, keep an eye out for this Carousel Players production coming up in May. Be sure to keep an eye as well on your mailbox this Thursday. That's where you're going to find your brand new edition of the Fort Erie Observer.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
This is the Byrd Box. It's Fort Erie's answering machine. You can call in anytime you like. You can squawk about anything you want. Something you heard on the show, something you saw around town, something you want to get off your chest. The number's 289-599-BYRD, or that's 289-599-2973. Now, another great reason you can call in is maybe your business, your organization, maybe you have an event coming up, something special going on. Last week, my guest was Brittany Hepburn, and she mentioned that she would call into the Byrd Box during our discussion with some details about a figure skating event she's involved in coming up in March. So that's exactly what she did. Let me play that message for you right now.
Hi, this is Coach Brittany calling from the Fort Erie Figure Skating Club. I'm calling in to let everyone know about our upcoming ice show, Road Trip on Ice, coming on Sunday, March 3rd. It'll take place at the Fort Erie Leisureplex on the Kinsman Ice. Showtime is 2 p.m. and it's free to attend, but donations are greatly appreciated and will go to a local cause chosen by the board. Come out and support your local skaters. Thanks so much. See you there.
Yeah, so this is a great use of the Byrd Box, calling in something topical, something happening around town. I think there's a lot to glean from this message. For starters, Fort Erie has a figure skating club, and I'm willing to bet a number of you didn't know that. This is happening on Sunday, March 3rd. Brittany mentioned they're collecting donations. She doesn't mention whether it's non-perishable food items, it's cash, maybe better to bring both, but great that they're doing something to support the community. I will say, as somebody who only started skating in very recent history in the last couple of months, the idea of like Road Trip on Ice that you can put on a themed show while on skates, I think is pretty remarkable. I'm certainly not doing any figure skating. I'm just trying to get around the ice without breaking my neck. That's my only objective right now. But great message, great use of the Byrd Box. Let's get on to my first interview for today's episode. It's time for a little bit of real time with Bill Marr.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
All right, I am speaking on the phone right now with Bill Marr from Garrison Automotive Service. Bill, how you doing today?
Brad, I'm doing good today. It's a great day in the town of Fort Erie for sure.
Well,
or as I like to call it, Fort Cheery. Fort Cheery is that's a good way.
Well, that's better than the people who walk around calling it Fort Dreary, right?
Yeah, we don't want to hear that. We like it's a happy town, right? So let's keep it on the happy side.
Well, you know what? The first question I wanted to ask you was about your name, but we can get back to that in a sec, because I think what I'd rather do is ask you a question I used to ask all of my guests a couple of years ago, which is, what, in your opinion, makes the town of Fort Erie such a great place to live and work?
Man, I don't live here. I live in Welland, but I spend quite a bit of time here as my business has been here for the last 8 years. And the best thing about Fort Erie is the sense of community that we get. It doesn't matter what's going on or what programs we're trying to run or people we're trying to help. I follow the Facebook groups, and everybody is so willing to help out and support local businesses and support local charities. It's just it's a diamond in the rough down here. Like, people don't even realize how much is going on in the town of Fort Erie at any given time, and how much the people are supporting, whether it's the businesses or the charities or the programs that are going on. So the number one thing I think in Fort Erie that I love the most is the people, right? I think we have a great group of people that just support everything in this town.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, because that was one of my big motivations in starting the Fort Erie podcast. Was for me moving here 10 years ago as a relative outsider. I love this town, but I found coming here as an outsider, I didn't realize exactly how much was happening. And as I, kind of got, say, embedded in the community, my wife and I began planting roots here. I realized just how much is actually going on. And I think it's worth putting a spotlight on all of those things.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And, it's funny, when we got into business here, when we bought the shop off Jack Shaw, who's synonymous with this town, for the last 40 years, mm-hmm. the customers that come in, I have one particular customer experience on my first day of running the shop, and he's talking to his wife right in front of me in our customer lounge. And he's telling her how, this guy's a new guy, and he's from Welland. I don't know about these Welland people. It was just a funny scenario, and I laugh about it now. They turned out to be great customers for our whole time, and he's passed away and she's moved out of the area. But just amazing people, and they love, the fact that, we were so local, like when we're supporting the community and stuff, right? But it was funny on that first day, people would ask, where are you from? And when you said, Welland, they're like, ooh, and it just became like that for a couple months until we got embedded in the community, and we're doing so much, giving back to the local charities, and people are just like, yeah, this guy's invested in our community, and it doesn't matter. And, I like to think of the Niagara region as one community because it's so small and so tight knit. Like, we have people all around the region that come here for service, but, it's just a tight group, right? Regardless of where you're kind of from. But it was a funny experience when I moved into the town of Fort Erie and started the business here. So.
Well, let me ask you, and I hate to put you on the spot, but would you ever consider relocating from Welland to Fort Erie? Because if so, I know a great realtor you could work with.
I happen to know one too. I might be talking to one on the phone, right? We talked about it for a few years, especially at the beginning, if it was going to be a big deal. But my son goes to the French school. My wife is French, and he goes to the French school in Welland, which is literally like a 2-minute drive and a 5-minute walk from our house. And she works locally at the Welland No Frills. So it's a 5-minute drive from our house, and my in-laws are in town. So the most convenient thing is to have me drive the half hour than to have them drive the half hour for everything that they do, right? So, I don't think you have to live in the town to be involved in the community. And I try to be involved in Welland and Fort Erie, and we try to help out both areas because, it's really a point in life where the community needs so much support right now. If we can help out on both ends, it makes a big difference, I think, to everybody, right?
Well, I think that's a good attitude to have, and I like that you haven't completely ruled out the idea. That's positive. Now, you mentioned acquiring Garrison Automotive 8 years ago. I think you said it was 8 years ago. Have there been any changes in that time? Maybe I think most listeners have a pretty good idea of what Garrison Automotive does, but maybe do you want to walk through some of the services you offer, some of the work you guys are doing, and maybe how that's different since you took over ownership?
Yeah, so we basically offer the same services that Jack Shaw offered back when we bought the shop in 2015, and but we have obviously changed quite a bit. We've moved from that smaller 5-bay facility next door with the gas station to building a brand new facility or brand new shop right next door. We went from 5 bays to 8 bays. We employ now, versus the 3 people that I employed when we took over, we're actually employing 11 people now, full-time jobs, living wages, and, trying to support those people so they can support the community, right? Because, it's no good to not be employing people where they're at a wage where they can afford to live, right? So we try to focus on that, and anybody who's been in here has seen the growth, and the town is growing, as as a real estate agent. So, we needed that bigger facility and more staff to be able to service the town and take care of car repairs in a quick fashion, which is one of our things that we try to do the best, is get the car back to the customer as soon as possible, which is the number one thing.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a couple of times some of the different community programs or community things you're involved in. And I wanted to talk with you about that because I see you all over the place on Fort Erie Facebook groups. I think you might even be a moderator for a couple of them, possibly. I'm not sure. But certainly you've been, guest DJ, 101.1 More FM. You've been involved in some different fundraising initiatives. Do you want to talk to listeners about some of the things that you're going to be involved in this year, how Garrison Automotive is going to be supporting the community?
Yeah, that's great. I always like to promote some of that stuff, and more because if we get the more amount of people that we get out, the better off we do for our charity events. When we bought the shop in 2015, an initiative that I took over from another place that I worked was donating $2 from every oil change to the local food banks. And it started off as we would send $100 to the Cope Center and $100 to the Salvation Army. That was where we were at with our oil changes. And now we're into $500 a month that we donate to the local food banks, which, wow. It's funny that $2 is a small amount in when you think about it, but it turns out to be about $6,000 a year that we directly send right to the food banks. And that's all because of the people that support us, right? So the food banks was a big one for me growing up with a single mom. And, we relied on some of those at times, and like Christmas gift baskets and stuff. So, it's for me, it was an important one, and now they're even more at this point are being used. And last year we started an initiative with a few local businesses. We joined up with Tender Cuts, 1011, 1051, The River, and one of a local mortgage broker, and we put together one family fun day, which we had bouncy castles, and we had a fundraiser in July where we raised $3,000 for the Cope Center. So we're really trying to, as the business grows, try to find ways that we can continue to give back to the community, supporting the Cope Center, supporting Salvation Army. And really, I know you had the Cope Center on a couple shows ago, listening to their development changes, but really trying to make sure that if we can, we're helping make sure people stay fed in this community and get the help they need, right? So,
well, it's always nice to have a guest on the show who's done their homework and has listened to the 40 Re podcast for some period of time. Because you're right, I have between Gary Haas and his friends last Christmas and what they were doing, fundraising for Cope, and then actually having Lynn Ray on a few episodes ago. I try to kind of split the focus of the show between small businesses and some of our not-for-profits here in town. But let me say on behalf of all listeners, I mean, thank you for what you're doing, for finding ways to support the community, to be embedded in it. I think one of the things I've always said about real estate is that I think if a good realtor should be a good community ambassador. And I don't think that applies just to real estate. I think really, most small business owners, I think, need to find a way to support the communities where they work, where they operate. I mean, do you think that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's 100%, what we should be looking towards. And, when we started the $2 from every oil change, we really advertised it heavy on the radio. You may have heard the ad and in the newspaper and stuff. And that's not because, I want people to come in and say, thank you very much, or, the vanity of doing that. What I wanted to show the community, what I really wanted to show was that for a small amount of what your business is, you can give back a huge amount to the community and help those and support those that are in need. And it just continues to build the business. Like, we're a prime example when you've gone from 5 bays to 8 bays and you're filling up the shop every day. It's because the community supports you, and they support you because you're supporting the community. And I think in the last 5 years, I think we've really seen that come to play in the town with Rona. They've stepped up. They've put on a couple charity events and concerts and things where, they've raised $30,000-$40,000. And, we're seeing guys like Sean from Tender Cuts with some fundraising, and we're seeing these community businesses latch on to this and see the benefit that it gives it. I know they call it a triple bottom line, right? When you're looking at your profit, your gross profit, and then your charitable contributions. And it just feeds into that community, right? So I think, and we're seeing, not to name names, another realtor puts on an event in the summertime, right? It's a big community event, raising money. So, and you're doing the podcast, which is getting that information out to people. Just the whole community is embedded in helping each other out, which only does better for what we have here, right?
I agree. And I think 99% of people get that. I think most people are really bought into that idea of you can be altruistic and still operate a for-profit business at the same time. There's always those, and I'm sure you come across folks like this too. There are the naysayers, the same people that walk around, saying things like Fort Dreary, right? I mean, it's the people that go, the only reason you did that is because you're trying to, service more cars, you're trying to sell more houses. And I go, well, look, that's not my motivation for why I do any of the things that I do. I'm sure it's not yours either. It's sort of an indirect benefit because I always look at it and go, well, if I organize a community event to raise money for something and it costs me money out of pocket, it's like, well, I could have put that money into billboards. I could have put that money into just running a newspaper ad about myself. But instead, it's like, I'd rather find ways to spend that money helping other people. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm sure you've come across some of these naysayers before too, where you go, I mean, I'm helping people. What do you care what the motivation is one way or another?
It's 100%. And I think, if we can gain some benefit from that as well, but the reality is if we are helping the community just by people changing their spending habits, just by using us for an oil change instead of going out of town, maybe to the Quick Lube or somewhere else, then what is it hurting? Because at the end of the day, the oil change isn't the business that we're it's not giving me a Ferrari to drive on the weekends. Let's be real here. I drive an '09 Chevy pickup with 350,000 kilometers on it.
Right.
At the end of the day, if we can drive that business in and give people a sense of helping the community with doing nothing other than just realizing that by supporting us and by having their service done here, it indirectly helps the community. What is the issue with that? It's never about driving. The first thing isn't about driving more business to us. It's about how much more we can give to the Cope Center and the Salvation Army and support those people who really need it on the back end. So we've dealt with Gary Haas and helped out a little bit with his program this year as well. And it's always great when everybody can kind of come together and help out, right? So, but yeah, you're always going to get those people, and they're always the same people, though. You're right. They're the ones who call it Fort Dreary, and it's a repressed market, and we have nothing in this town, and we don't even have a mall. No, but we have a lot of shopping facilities, and we don't even have any jobs. No, we have a lot of jobs. Look around. There's factories being built all over the place and other small businesses, right? So I guess it's the glass half empty or glass half full, right? So when it comes to, well, you're only helping the community so you can benefit. No, the reality is when we benefit and the customer benefits, and that means our staff benefit, and that means we can donate more to the community and the community benefits, then it's a win all the way across the board. It doesn't matter how you slice it, but everybody's winning on this kind of a situation, right?
Well, that's the idea. It's a win-win-win. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about glass half full versus glass half empty. It's all in the perspective. I mean, if you want to see the good, you're going to see the good. Now, you, I think, through a lot of the work you've done, have become a little bit of a celebrity, and that's why I started, I started our chat by saying I wanted to discuss your name, because you must get people who make, real time with Bill Marr jokes all the time, play the HBO music or something when you walk in the room. Do you get some of that?
Yeah, we always get the Bill Marr, and I always say, well, because he started out with politically incorrect with Bill Marr, right?
Yeah.
So I always say I'm the politically correct spelling of Marr, Marr versus Mahher. So it's always a comical conversation. The other one I get is, there's some Marrs that have been big in the community. One out in Stevensville, Bob Marr, who sold cars for years. So, we'll get people come in all the time and be like, oh, well, I knew your dad and I bought cars off him. No, he's not my dad, and no, he's not a relation. Good guy. I was involved in the community for a long time. But I guess if I had $1 for every time somebody came in with that, I would probably be able to retire already. So it's funny how people associate just because of a last name with somebody else who may have been involved in the community too, right? So
if you have a staff meeting, do you ever start it with new rule? Like, do you ever do like a Bill Marr new rule segment or something before Sharon's before speaking with your team?
No, but maybe we should. It's funny you bring that up. We're actually having a staff meeting this evening. We try to do it once a month just to refocus everybody and make some catch up on some of the stuff that is changing in the industry and make sure that we're prepared for the upcoming season. Because of course, it's February 21st, and you know what that means. Spring is around the corner, and we're going to be getting really busy with snow tires off and summer tires on in the next couple of weeks, especially with the weather. I don't know if you've looked at the weather, but it's spring has sprung in my opinion. So
yeah, it's looking good. But yeah, you can have that one on me. You can officially start calling all your meetings, real time with Bill Marr, and you can start all of them with, new rule, and then you have to tell your staff that they are forced to clap every time you say something.
We're going to do that today. I will run that past them. And I don't know if you've ever dealt with mechanics, but they don't like change. And I know nobody likes change, but in the mechanic world, changes it's worse for sure. They definitely do not take well to new rules or new changes. So it's always a challenge to implement stuff.
And it's funny because I can't think of an industry that's about to see more change coming up probably than yours. But one of the things I was looking at before we started our chat today was your Google reviews. You have 146 reviews on Google, averaging 4.7, which is almost unheard of, especially in let's say in the automotive industry. I think it's pretty fair to say the record states that you and your staff, trustworthy people. So I thought maybe you could take a moment to share with listeners, because, let's be honest, in the automotive, especially automotive service industry, there's a perception sometimes that people may be dishonest. Can you speak to maybe some common scams or how people might be able to, first and foremost, they should come see you, but if they decide to take their vehicle somewhere else, what sort of things should they look out for? How do they identify the scams and avoid them?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick note there. We're very fortunate that we have an amazing staff who cares about customers as much as I do. And I know that's cliche and it becomes every business wants that, but we really do. And whether I'm here or not, the business runs well with people get looked after. And we've kind of built the philosophy of everybody taking ownership. And that's the program that we run here. So everybody cares. If we can do it, we do. And if we can't, it's because we really can't. But, the automotive industry has been plagued for years with this perception that you talk about there. And it came from the 80s, the 90s, a little bit in the beginning where, a lot of shops got into situations where they're doing unauthorized repairs and people just started feeling like they were getting taken advantage of and repairs weren't getting done correctly. And in some cases, that was the case. So in late 90s, early 2000s, the government brought in the Consumer Protection Act. And it's really important that people understand that act because it protects people primarily in the automotive industry. We're bound by legislation for guidelines now. So when you come in for service, you have to authorize the repairs. You have to be aware of what the estimate's going to be. They cannot go past the estimate over 10%. Like there's a whole bunch of provisions in there that protect people. And that's the number one way that you can protect yourself is to understand that in the event that you have repairs done that you didn't authorize, you do not have to pay for those repairs. It is clearly in the legislation that the shop has to provide an estimate either verbally or written to you, and you have to agree to those repairs prior to them being done. So, I think that's the number one thing that people run into is, well, I had my car in for service and they did $300 worth of work, but I never told them to go ahead with that. Well, that's not allowed, and you have the right to refuse those repairs. So, we always, we're so diligent on making sure people know how much the cost is going to be because I don't like to have those conversations at the counter. And I have some customers now who are just like, just fix the car, don't call me. And I still call them and they'll repeatedly say, to me, why are you calling me? Why are you bugging me? I tell you just to fix it. I said, because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding about how much this is going to cost you ever. I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So when you come in, the bill is either the price that we told you, or if we've been able to save you somewhere, maybe a little bit cheaper. But I don't want to ever have that shell shock at the counter. And that's the number one thing. Like, if you want to protect yourself against a lot of consumer issues, but the consumer issues in the automotive industry, understand Bill 22 and the legislation that protects you, and you will be fine. You will not have a problem.
Well, good. I think that's great advice, and that's something everybody can do is get familiar with the Consumer Protection Act. So on the one side of it, of course, is be an informed consumer. Make sure you know what you're authorizing. Another piece, of course, may be to do some preventative maintenance so that you don't end up in a situation where you need a ton of repairs. What are some tips maybe you could give for listeners going into the spring season? Things they could do for preventative maintenance to take care of their vehicle.
Yeah, the number one thing you can do is regular oil changes. And we talk about this on our Talking Shop segment quite frequently on Thursday afternoons at 5:20 on More FM. The oil change manufacturing specification is far too long, in my opinion, and we see a lot of engine problems resulting from that. So, we try to inform our customers and give them a little better spec on what we would recommend. So we recommend on regular oil 5,000 kilometers or 3 months, and then on synthetic it can go as far as 6 months or 8,000 kilometers. But of course, we don't recommend going past that because our climate's really hard on vehicles with the moisture that gets in the oil. It then creates problems with sludge, not to get too technical. But, if you're servicing your car regularly at a good shop that's doing a great inspection, like we're checking things like your front end and your belts and your hoses, then you're going to avoid breakdowns. So if you're in twice a year for oil change or 3 times a year for oil change or 4, it gives the shop an opportunity to keep up on what's going to be coming up on your vehicle. And we'll often let customers know that, hey, listen, your brakes are getting down to about 25%. in the next 6 months, you're probably going to need some brakes. So plan for it, right? Because people really, it's always a bad time for car repairs to come out, but it's a worse time when you're kind of on the spot and you have to fix it. So if you can get into a routine of doing your regular oil changes, and having a shop go through the vehicle and check things out, then you kind of will put off that opportunity or that chance of the vehicle breaking down, right? So I think that's the number one thing, is get it checked out regularly, and then that way you can be ahead of the curve instead of on the breakdown side.
Okay, well, for folks who want to get their vehicle checked out, of course, they could come see you, Garrison Automotive. I think most people know your location on Garrison Road, but do you want to speak to maybe where people could find you online as well, website, social media? Where could people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so the best place is you can Google Garrison Automotive Service, and you'll come to our Google page. Website is garrisonautomotiveservice.com, and we're at 1300 Garrison Road. So, you got a couple ways to get in touch with us. You can call us, stop in, or you can even email us through the website. So either way, we're always monitoring those alternative ways of communication, even through Facebook and through Google. So if you need to contact us, you can take any one of those opportunities to call us and get an appointment. And it's going to get busy in the next couple weeks. So if you're planning on getting your snow tires off, make a decision on when you want it and give us a call early so we can get you the appointment that you want, and then you're going to be taken care of.
Perfect. And what's the number?
Our phone number, is 905-871-1816.
1816. Got it. And is there anything else that you want to share with listeners just before we wrap up?
No, Brent, I'm really happy with the way the Fort Erie community takes care of its small businesses. And I want to thank you for doing the podcast, because, this is an opportunity for small businesses to get some advertising or get some knowledge out there that might necessarily not be able to get into the advertising programs, as well as the community to find out about events that are happening. So, the community is great, and I think we have a good opportunity in Fort Erie to continue growing and developing into that small town community, but with a bigger area and a lot more services that we were lacking in the past as we see the businesses moving into town. So I want to just thank you and the community for all that they do around here. So.
Fort Erie Job Leads.
I did the research so that you don't have to. Welcome to 40 Erie Job Leads. If you're on the hunt for a new job, hopefully one of these leads will point you in the right direction. For starters, I'll mention the Crystal Beach Gateway, oddly located in Ridgeway, but that's besides the point. Crystal Beach Gateway is looking for servers/cashiers up to $18 an hour, or you can apply for a cook's position up to $19 an hour. I believe you can apply for this one in person. The new McDonald's location that everybody knew was coming to Ridgeway, well, it is opening in June. They are hiring now for cashiers and cooks, full-time hours, minimum wage, some benefits. You can apply online. There's a career fair happening. This is coming up at the Safari Niagara gift shop. This career fair is not just for Safari Niagara, also the Stevensville Lawn Service, Stevensville Garden Gallery. It says here to be prepared, come to the job fair with a resume in hand, expect to be interviewed on the spot. This is happening Saturday, March 9th from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. Scuttlebutt in Stevensville. They need a cook. You can drop off a resume in person. Fresh Start Cleaning Company says that they are urgently hiring cleaners. They emphasize the word urgently, says text or call 905-329-1558. Barbican, and that's a name I'm probably saying wrong, but Barbican is looking for a maintenance person. This looks like, based on reading the job description, it sounds very physically demanding, a lot of physical work, lots of labor. If you are interested in this, you can send a resume by email to Jenny, Jenny, at barbican.ca. If you want to make well into six figures plus earn some benefits, you could consider applying for the Director of Resident Care at Garrison Place Retirement Facility. Green Acres Family Restaurant is looking for a host or hostess, part-time hours, flexible scheduling, pay as minimum wage. And lastly, I'll mention that UPS here in Fort Erie needs a warehouse worker, part-time hours, minimum wage, some benefits, 3 to 5 hour shifts, which start at 6 o'clock p.m. You can apply for this one via Indeed.
The Fort Erie Podcast.
Okay, joining me on the phone right now, I'm speaking with local author Samantha Meli, author of Monty Leads the Way and Horseshoe. Samantha, welcome to the Fort Erie Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, I appreciate you being here. Do you prefer Samantha, Sam? Do you have a preference?
It doesn't matter. No.
Doesn't matter. Okay, I'll stick with Samantha then, if that's okay with you.
All right.
Well, let's start with your title, Monty Leads the Way. I wanted to talk about that book specifically because my family got the chance to meet you back in December at the Frosty the Christmas Horse event at the Place Bar and Grill, and picked up that book for my daughter, and she enjoyed getting to read through it and, look at all the colorful illustrations. For the benefit of listeners, what is Monty Leads the Way? What is it? What is that story all about?
It's about a horse named Monty, and he's waiting for his mother to come home on Christmas Eve. And so as he's waiting, he hears like some noise outside. So he goes outside the barn that he's living in, and he spots a Santa pup, who happens to be like Santa Claus's companion. And for some reason, one of his reindeer has caught a cold. So he asks Monty to help him deliver the rest of the presents for Christmas Eve, and that's what Monty does. So
great. So you've written some children's titles. Monty Leads the Way. Now, Horseshoe, is that also a Christmas story, or is it just a tie-in so far as there's horses in both stories?
Yeah, so Horseshoe is different than Monty Leads the Way. Horseshoe is about a young girl named Sophia, and she gets to ride her favorite horse, Princess, for the very first time. So it's kind of like a horse racing story.
Okay. Was that inspired by our local racetrack here in Fort Erie, maybe?
Yeah, we're actually my family and I, we've been part of the horses for a very long time. My dad, he's a trainer blacksmith at the Fort Erie racetrack. So Horseshoe was definitely the inspiration for that. And also Princess happens to be one of our horses we used to have back in the day. So that book was kind of also like based on a real horse too.
Oh,
her story.
So that's the horse, and Horseshoe is Princess, based on a real horse.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So your family, then, you're originally from Fort Erie.
Yeah. I was born in Brampton first, and then eventually, when I was around 3, I came here with my family to spend the rest of my life kind of here because I guess Brampton was a little bit bad back in our time, so it wasn't safe for us to
It's still not.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So we eventually came to Fort Erie, and we were definitely opened up by so many great people, and it's such a small town, but there's so much support.
Well, it's a great area to be. It's one of the reasons I can keep doing this podcast is that there's always something going on in this town. For a town of its size, it's actually staggering, how much there is happening on a week-to-week basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you want to, for people who want to learn more about your titles, do you want to maybe plug your website, your social media handles? How can people find you online?
So I go by Have Imagination Studios on Facebook and Instagram, and on my website is just www.haveimaginationstudios.weebly.com. And you can also look for both my books at Lakeside Books and Art in Ridgeway, Ontario.
Okay, so your books are available. Physical copies of your books are available to purchase from Lakeside in downtown Ridgeway. Your Have Imagination Studios on social media, and then I assume even if somebody just Googled Have Imagination Studios, it would bring up your website, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, these are a lot of creative endeavors because I understand you've authored these books, but if I'm not mistaken, did you not also do the illustrations?
Yeah, I did the illustrations.
That's impressive because usually people can do one or the other. It's like you write or you draw, but most people are not illustrating and authoring books. So tell us about all your many talents because you obviously you can write, you can illustrate. What else can you do?
I can play the saxophone. Music is kind of like my second love.
What's your earliest memory of knowing you wanted to do something creative?
I did a lot of what's called life drawing. Is kind of just looking around, for example, I would be in the schoolyard, just drawing away, if I was, could be drawing a tree or, the bird in the tree, just like a lot of life drawing. And I did a lot of drawings of horses when we, were with the horses.
Mm-hmm.
I think it all kind of started when I wanted to be an artist around grade 8. I did this project for one of my last art classes, like before going into grade 8. And I guess it was, I had like a tree, and then there was like a big giant character in the background. And I guess my mom was shocked that I actually did like the tree first, and like she was just amazed like what I accomplished. And I kind of just looked to myself, and I'm like, maybe there's something here that I have. And so I decided to go with art.
You mentioned your mom a moment ago, and, I had the pleasure of meeting your mom, at the same time I met Frosty the Christmas horse back in December. It was actually kind of funny calling you to speak with you today for the 40 Re podcast. Your mom answered the phone, and I was almost taken back to this point in history where it's like I'd call a friend, and it's like their mom would pick up the phone, and there was always like there was one extra layer before you got the friend on the phone. But it seems like your mom is very supportive of your work. Is that the case? You have a lot of family support behind you?
Yeah. No, my mom and the rest of my family are very big supporters. She's also my mom manager, I call her. So.
Okay. Well, that's lucky. I mean, not, obviously you have talent, and that's important, but not everybody has that family support or people who believe in them or want to see them succeed,
Yeah.
If we kind of take it a step back, I mean, we talked about illustrating, we talked about writing, different sort of visual arts things that you've done. Have you had a lot of formal training in these areas, or has a lot of it just kind of come from within, or tell us about that? What is your background, maybe sort of education or training wise in some of these areas?
Yeah. So a lot of my training, at the beginning, I taught myself certain things, and then eventually I got accepted to Sheridan College, which is one of the best arts and animations schools in the entire in Canada and also the entire world. And
Absolutely.
so I was privileged to go there for 3 years in the Visual and Creative Arts Advanced program, and we did a lot of drawing, painting, different designs, things like 2D, 3D, but just a lot of different stuff that helped me, I guess, make my grow grow with my work, and they're really helpful with that.
Before we hit the record button, you'd mentioned that you are working on a novel that you hope to have released this year. Now, I'll say from experience, having penned a couple of novels myself, you kind of keep things under wraps until it's ready, let's say, right? And who knows when it's going to be ready. But can you maybe give us a bit of a teaser? Is this novel you're working on, is it also like a children or young adults type book, or are you going down a completely different path where you want to write about psychotic serial killers, or what's happening? What's this novel sort of themed on that you're working on?
Yeah, so my new novel, I don't want to spoil much because I still wanted a little surprise, but I wanted to target a little bit of a young adult teen audience this time.
Okay.
And it's about fantasy, the genre of fantasy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of characters in that one, and I finished the book. I just have to work on the other things like designing it and the cover. So I'm getting close to finishing it. So I'm hoping to release it this year.
You're hoping are we expecting first half of the year, second half of the year, maybe time for a Christmas release? Do you have any idea, or you're just going to kind of wait and see?
Yeah, I'm hoping I would say summer, a summer this year. I would say I'm going to have it out for sure.
Well, that's excellent. Good. Okay. Well, hey, we're rooting for you. I know you mentioned your books are available at Lakeside. Is there anywhere else where folks could pick up your books or check them out, or are there plans to get them anywhere else?
Oh, there's also Chapters and Kohl's. So Kohl's at the Penn Center, and Chapters in St. Catharines.
Okay. Do you sell it online at all through your website or through Amazon or anything like that?
So you can contact me through my website, and all the information is there for if you want to purchase a book.
Okay, great. And do you have any plans this year? Because it's always a cool experience when you get to meet the author, get an autograph, get a picture. I mean, my family got a great picture with you back in December. Actually, did I send you that picture or no?
No, I don't think so.
Honestly, it was one of the best family and we get family photography done around the holidays every year. But I was like, actually, and I think your mom took the picture, if I'm not mistaken. But it was one of the best family photos we have. Actually, it was just us there with you getting the book signed. So for people who want to meet you, they want to get an autograph. Do you have any idea where you might be this summer or different events you might participate in?
I recently did 3 schools last year.
Okay.
And hopefully getting into more schools there for anybody around, I think, just the Niagara region.
I think John Brandt was one of the schools you did this year, right? Or last year, I should say. Sorry.
Yeah, I think a lot of the shows that I'm doing, I think, start in the summertime. So you can find me at the racetrack. I sometimes do book signings there.
Okay.
There's the Circle of Art in Crystal Beach. I'm usually there participating in their art event. Some of the craft shows by the Legion.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You participated in one of those last year. I think that was the first time I mentioned you on the Fort Erie podcast, and I butchered your name. I called you like Samantha Meli or something like that. And but yeah, you did one of those last year, did you not?
Yeah, I did.
Maybe you have a little inspirational message for people who have a creative spark in them and they want to, try doing what Samantha's doing. I mean, what kind of advice would you have for those folks?
First of all, I just wanted to thank you for having me on the show.
Of course.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank for those who've been following me and just buying the books and that I know of so far. Just thank you for your support and always follow your dreams.
Well, I want to thank you for spending some time with me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Fort Erie Questions and Answers, based on the Facebook group by the same name.
Welcome to Fort Erie Questions and Answers. This is the part of the show where I go through the Facebook group by the same name and pick out any questions and answers that I thought were especially interesting, amusing, helpful, or otherwise. Let's start with this one here. Tracy asks, has anyone gotten a parking ticket at the medical building? Have you paid it or not? The most obvious comment that came up was pay it. Yeah, you should probably pay it. This commenter says they will put it in collections, charge you a fortune. I'm fighting a similar thing right now over a ticket. I had to get NHS involved. Yeah, I mean, that would be my sort of common sense advice is that if you get a parking ticket, you should probably pay it. Or if not, fight it legally. I wouldn't ignore it. Somebody else here in the comments gave the opposite advice. They said, I've got several of these tickets over the years. I've never paid them and I've never had a problem. Did not get any collections letters either. Well, I think you probably will eventually. These sorts of things, parking tickets, they have a funny way of not going away. They keep on coming back. Bonnie asks, I'm just wondering if Crescent Flooring is still open or has it closed? I've been trying to get in contact with them for about a week, driven there twice, called several times, sent an email, no response, thanks. The overwhelming consensus in the comments is yes, Crescent Flooring is closed. So I don't have anything to elaborate on that one. It is closed. Go buy flooring somewhere else, unfortunately. I like dealing with them when they were open, if I'm being quite honest. Let's see. Michelle actually asks 2 questions here in one. She says, what was the hotel on Garrison Road where the Barrel restaurant is now? And part 2 is, was there a church next to St. Joseph Cemetery on Garrison Road? So addressing the first part of the question, the overwhelming response in the comments was that hotel was called the Fort Erie Hotel or Hotel Fort Erie. Neat little piece of history. Yes, there used to be a hotel there where the Barrel restaurant is now. And yes, there was an old Catholic church at one time where the cemetery is. Local historian Rick Doan chimed in the comments. He was kind enough to put up a photo of the old Hotel Fort Erie. So very cool to see that old black and white photo of a hotel that has been gone for a very, very long time. And lastly, I'll mention this one. Timothy says, anyone know, and I might mispronounce the name, but Timothy says, anyone know Jacob Kudirian? I found his Costco membership card down by the train bridge. And he Timothy posts a picture of this Costco membership card. You can see the gentleman, Jacob, you can see his photo in there. And what makes this post great, because this is a pretty innocuous run-of-the-mill post, it's not really the question itself, somebody found a Costco membership card. It's that the top comment, the top response under this post is from Jacob Kudirian, the guy who owns the card. He says, yeah, I know the guy. So that got like 70-something reactions. I guess Jacob got his Costco membership card back. And there was also another comment here that was great because in the Costco membership card itself, Jacob is not just, most of us have an awful photo on our Costco membership card. Jacob's doesn't look half bad. And in fact, he's sitting there eating an ice cream cone in the photo. He's got an ice cream cone in his face. So one commenter said, Costco membership photo while eating a cone is a boss move. And I couldn't agree more. No kidding. Anyway, Fort Erie, keep the questions coming. I always find them interesting.
You're listening to the Fort Erie Podcast.
And that's it. That's our show for today. Thank you for tuning in for Real Time with Bill Marr. New rule, you have to take your car to Garrison Automotive for all of your maintenance needs. And you also need to give Samantha Meli a follow on social media and check out all of her books. But that is our show for today. Episode 86 is coming next week. Kamara Morgan will be my guest. She's an elite athlete at Fort Erie International Academy. FIA plays for the Falcons women's basketball team. She's going to be talking about her experience playing sports at that level while also balancing a demanding high school, private school curriculum. And I've got an announcement to make next week, an important announcement. Stay tuned for that. As always, be sure to subscribe to the Fort Erie Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Get your messages in on the Byrd Box, 289-599-BYRD, and I will chat with you again soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.